Jacoby Brissett. 47 completions on 57 attempts for 452 yards. Those 47 completions that he had were the most completions in NFL history. Welcome to Just the Stats NFL Top 10's for Tuesday. Hope everyone's doing well on this Tuesday. We had Monday Night Football, and I'm having to open up a document because I had to restart my computer and for some reason. But we are going to be looking at the rest of the games for Sunday. Hopefully we'll get through all of them in the next half hour or so, plus the Monday night game. And then we'll see what we're going to be doing for tomorrow. But we have quite a few games to talk about, and some of these games are super interesting as far as some of the stats that came out of them. So let's get started, even though I say that, but then this first game between the Green Bay Packers and the New York Giants is not one of them. In fact, there's no top 10s in this game to talk about. But in the game, the Green Bay Packers beat the Giants 27-20. Way too close of a game, I think, for the Packers against a Giants team that doesn't have their starting quarterback, their best wide receiver, their best running back. And you're supposed to have a good defense, and yet you give up 20 points to the Giants. Giants were able to run the ball quite well. It kept them in this game. Jameis Winston, obviously, he did have a touchdown. Well, he actually had a run. He ran a ball in. But you can pretty much guarantee that he'll have an interception as well. So, which he did. Only one. Often he throws more than that. But he did all right, for filling in. Now, this was a close game the whole way, and surprisingly, that the Packers couldn't put them away. It was 13-13 at halftime. Green Bay pulls ahead in the third quarter. The Giants actually come back, and they're winning this game on a 1-yard run by Jameis Winston to pull ahead 20-19 halfway through the fourth quarter. Now, they couldn't hold on. Jordan Love brings the team back. With about 4 minutes to go, they pull into the lead 27-20, and that's where the game ended. But amazingly, a much closer game than you would have thought. And the Giants actually, net yards, had more yards than Green Bay did. Held the ball way longer, and that's because their running game almost had the ball for 36 minutes to 24. That's impressive. And it really, like I said, it's because of the running game. Between Tracy and Singletary, they had 35 carries between just the two of them, for 132 yards. Now, not a lot of yards, especially on Singletary's end of it, though he did have the 2 touchdowns rushing. But they just tried to control this game, and it almost paid off for them in a win, but not quite. So Green Bay goes 6-3-1, and we'll talk about where they stand in the top 10s and the standings when we look at that in a day or two. So like I said, not much to talk about in this game. Now, next game up, the Los Angeles Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. This game was in Jacksonville, and I don't know what to say about the Jaguars. Last week, they blow a lead. They give up 26 points in the fourth quarter to lose to Houston. This week, they pull out to a huge lead. And at the point, I was still thinking, are they going to blow this lead? But they didn't. They actually held on to win. Not held on. They dominated from start to finish. 35-6, the Jaguars beat the Chargers. It was their most impressive win. They dominated in every facet of the game. Now, Trevor Lawrence did throw 1 interception, which now gives him 54, which ties him with David Garrard for third all-time in most interceptions for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So not a stat that you want to be up there in. He did throw that early, and it was a terrible pass, honestly. But after that, he settled down and he played well. In fact, the way the game went, he didn't have to play much. I mean, he only had 14 completions on 22 attempts for 153 yards. He did have one touchdown pass. Had a quarterback rating of 80. Now, Justin Herbert was horrendous. Trey Lance did come in the fourth quarter, but actually in the third quarter, it was such a blowout, and Justin Herbert had been hounded, only sacked twice, but he was hit numerous times. One play, he was sacked. They called the Jaguars player for roughing the passer, and it was not even close. He tackled him with his arm. He didn't land on him or anything. But anyway, he had 18 attempts, only 10 completions for 81 yards in this game. I mean, as a team, between Herbert and Lance, they had 118 yards passing. That's horrendous. They just couldn't get anything going. The running game, they averaged little over 2.5 yards a rush in this game. Just a game that wasn't good at all for them. They'll have to go back to the drawing board. And the problem for the Chargers is they don't have an offensive line that protects Herbert. He's having to do everything he can to get rid of the ball before he's being sacked. Now, for the Jaguars, Jacoby Myers is already showing how worthy he is. 5 catches for 64 yards, and 4 of those were first downs. He did lead the team in receptions and in yards. And like I said, there's only 153 yards of passing. They didn't need to pass the ball much because they ran the ball for 192 yards. I mean, they just split the carries between Etienne and Tootin almost evenly. Tootin had 15 for 74, Etienne 19 for 73. They both had touchdowns. Etienne had 2 touchdowns. Tootin had 1. Now, Tootin did get hurt, and hopefully it's nothing serious for them. Even LaQuint Allen came in, had 8 carries for 36 yards. So it was really about the running game and the ability to push the Chargers around. So like I said, Lawrence had that 1 interception. Also in this game, another stat is Josh Hines-Allen had been sitting in a tie with Tony Brackens for most sacks by a Jacksonville Jaguar in their history with 55. He did have a sack in this game, so he now has 56. He is now the all-time leader for the Jacksonville Jaguars with 56 sacks. He passed Tony Brackens, who played from 1996 to 2003, who had 55. So Josh Hines-Allen now holds the sack record and the tackle for loss record for the Jaguars. All right, let's move on to the next game, and that is between the Seattle Seahawks and the Los Angeles Rams. This was a big game. This was for first place in their division, and it was a close game. Surprisingly, it was a close game. I mean, honestly, as many interceptions as Darnold threw, you would have thought the Rams would have walked away with this game, but they ended up winning this game 21-19. And in fact, it came down to the very end where the kicker for Seattle missed a field goal that would have gave them the win. So that's impressive on Seattle's part that Darnold has his worst game by far. He was 29 for 44, 279 yards, 4 interceptions. Had a quarterback rating of 45.5. 4 interceptions, no touchdown passes, and yet they had a chance to win it at the end of the game. So it's going to be interesting to see this division as it goes on, because Seattle, like I said, almost pulled this game out despite Darnold having his worst game of the season. But they don't win it. So the Rams are now in first place in their division over the Seattle Seahawks. Now in this game, Matthew Stafford didn't have a very good game either, honestly. He had a quarterback rating of 89.9, which is, okay. 15 completions on 28 attempts, only 130 yards, but he did have another 2 touchdowns passing in this game. This game, really, Kyren Williams was dominant in this game. 12 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. And in fact, he also then only had 1 catch for 5 yards. But so between him and Puka Nacua, they carried this team across the finish line. Puka Nacua had 7 catches for 75 yards in this game, as well as 2 rushes for 18 yards. So totaled out to 18, and he had 93 yards total in this game. He had 93 yards, and Kyren Williams had 96 yards. So the two of them dominated as far as their team goes. Those are the numbers on this game. I mean, really, it wasn't much to say about it. The reason there was so few yards by the Rams, they only had the ball for 22 minutes. The Seattle Seahawks had it for almost 38, which is why they were almost able to win the game despite the 4 interceptions. Now, in this game, like I said, unfortunately for Sam Darnold, he had 4 interceptions, which puts him at the top of the list this season. The only quarterback who's thrown 4 interceptions in a game. Not a stat you want to lead in. And then after that, there's 9 times a quarterback has thrown 3 interceptions. That fills out the entire top 10. Geno Smith has done it twice, and Tua Tagovailoa has done it twice, as well as Jake Browning for the Bengals twice. So 3 players have 6 of those. Now, also in this game, Kenneth Walker, he needed a rushing touchdown. He was in 6th place all time for the Seattle Seahawks in rushing touchdowns. He got 1 touchdown. He now has 28 to tie Sherman Smith, who played in the late 70s and early 80s for the Seahawks. They both have 28 rushing touchdowns. Now, next up for Kenneth Walker will be somebody you'll have to look at next year, Chris Warren, who played in the 90s. He's got 44, so that's a ways away. That's a season away for Kenneth Walker, season plus. He's going to need to get a few more to even have a chance to catch him next year. Now, one more stat in this game was Jason Myers. He only needed 6 points to tie Norm Johnson for the all-time total points scored for the Seattle Seahawks. In this game, he got 13. He now has 817 points to pass Norm Johnson, who played in the 80s, who had 810. Jason Myers now with 817 points is the leading total points scored by the Seattle Seahawks in their history. So congratulations to him to be the number 1 player on that team in that category. Now, when we're looking at the Rams, Stafford, another 2 touchdowns. He needed 2 touchdowns. He's now in a tie with Mark Bulger with 122 passing touchdowns for the Los Angeles Rams. They're both tied in 3rd place. Mark Bulger played in the from 2002 to 2009. So now Matthew Stafford, Mark Bulger tied for 3rd with 122 passing touchdowns. Next up for Matthew Stafford is Jim Everett, who played in the 80s and 90s. He's got 142, so he needs 20 touchdown passes. He's not going to get that this year. I mean, very unlikely that he'll get 20 more, but he'll come close. If he does play another year, he has a chance to catch Everett and Roman Gabriel, who leads the team with 154. So we'll just see what he does this next year. I'm very curious if he'll go another year or not. All right. Now, in this game as well, you had Kyren Williams, who was trying to break into the top 10 all-time in rushing yards for the Rams, and he did it in a big way. He had 91 yards. He only needed 25 to pass Wendell Taylor, who played in the late 70s, early 80s, to move into 10th all time. So with 91, not only did he pass Wendell Tyler, he also passed Tank Younger, who played from 1949 to 1957. So Kyren Williams now, with 3,332 yards, is in 9th place all-time for the Rams in rushing yards. Next up for him is Les Josephson, who played in the 60s and 70s. He only needs 75 yards to pass him to move into 8th. He's got a chance to move up another notch after that, and then he's going to have to wait at least a year to catch Todd Gurley, who's in 6th. But congratulations to Kyren Williams for getting into the top 10, and we'll see how far he goes with that. Now, one more stat that I'm going to mention, it's just the fact that crazy stat really in a way, and that's Adams for the Davante Adams for the Rams. He needed one reception to get to 1,000 receptions in his career. Well, he had one reception for 1 yard and 1 touchdown. That is the only catch he had in the game. It was for a touchdown. And what an important catch to get. He is now tied with Hines Ward for 1,000 receptions in the NFL. There's only 16 players, and he's the 16th. Well, we'll say 17 now. He's the 17th player in NFL history to have 1,000 receptions in their career. It's just something that doesn't happen that much. And what's amazing about this is that you now have 3 players currently playing who are in this category of 1,000 receptions or more, and that's Travis Kelce, Keenan Allen, and Davante Adams. Travis Kelce did it last year. Keenan Allen did it this year. Davante Adams just did it. And now the next one up is DeAndre Hopkins, who has 997. He only needs 3 to break into this, to be the 18th player. Now, after that, honestly, there is nobody. You got to go all the way to Justin Jefferson, who's only basically halfway to 1,000. There's just nobody that's going to make the 1,000. So it's going to go years again where you have this kind of numbers and these type of players making it with 1,000 receptions. So pretty impressive career for these guys. And what's funny about it is 3 of these players, Travis Kelce, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Hopkins, all started their career in 2013, and they have very similar numbers. And then Davante Adams is the other one, and he was 2014. So he's a year behind them, but he has broken in with 1,000 receptions. So very impressive. All right. We'll move on to the next game. That is the San Francisco 49ers versus the Arizona Cardinals. This game was pretty much the 49ers the whole way. The Cardinals have they got to regroup and try next year. I mean, things have not gone right for them. Quarterback situation, running back situation, and now playing without one of their wide receivers. It's just been a rough year for them all the way around. I mean, not only do they not have their starting running back, they don't even have their backup running back. And then you've got Brissett playing, who actually had a crazy good game, and yet they could not win. And it wasn't even close, honestly. The game ended up San Francisco 49ers 41, Arizona Cardinals 22. And this game was a blowout, 25-10 at halftime, 35-10 after the third quarter. And Arizona came back and scored a couple 12 points to make it a little more respectable, if you want to say that. And this game was in Arizona. But there were records set in this game. Brock Purdy was back playing, had a good game, 19 completions on 26 attempts for 200 yards, a good yards per attempt, 7.7, 3 touchdowns passing, no interceptions. So he had a quarterback rating of 133.5. Christian McCaffrey, another big game, all-round game, 13 carries, 81 yards, and then 5 catches for 40 yards. So that's 121 more yards on scrimmage. He's just been doing that game in, game out. George Kittle back now with 6 catches, 67 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. So your star players are showing up and finally getting on the field, getting them all back. Juwan Jennings, 4 catches for 54 yards in this game. So pretty good. Now, on the other hand, here's where all the stats come from, a lot of them. And we'll start with the Arizona Cardinals. And we'll start with their quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. 47 completions on 57 attempts for 452 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Had a quarterback rating of 96.8. Those 47 completions that he had were the most completions in NFL history. So Jacoby Brissett had 47 completions. That is the most completions in NFL history. He also had 452 yards, which was an incredible amount of yardage, put him at number 2 this season for most yards in a single game. Joe Flacco had 470 a couple weeks ago. That's the only game better. So he had quite a game. Not only did he have a big game, but Michael Wilson had a big game as well. The wide receiver for the Cardinals, who caught 15 of those passes, he had 15 catches for 185 yards, which put him at number 2 in most receptions in a single game this year, just behind Jamar Chase, who had 16 4 weeks ago in week 7. Michael Wilson had a big game. And then with 185 yards, that's the most yards this season by a wide receiver, or any receiver, in fact. Devontae Smith had 183 in week 7. That was the highest total. Now Michael Wilson with 185 leads that. Now, who saw this coming? I mean, Michael Wilson. Trey McBride, who is their star pass catcher, had 10 catches himself for 115 yards. So he had a big game. He also had a touchdown. So those 2 players had 25 of the 47 catches. But it was a huge game for them. I should look at this yards per attempt by Brissett, 7.9. Only 10 incompletions. 2 of those were for an interception, though. Now, for the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey continues to move up the list's all-time NFL list, and that is in receiving yards. This time, he needed 25 yards to catch Tiki Barber for 6th place. He got 40. So he now has 5,198 yards in receiving yards as a running back, which puts him 6th all-time in the NFL in that category. Next up for him is Keith Byers with 5,372 yards. Keith Byers played in the 80s and 90s. So he was not in the top 10, McCaffrey, and he's now in 6th as far as that category goes. He's been incredible. Now, Alvin Kamara is also on this list, but he's in 8th, and he got passed a while back by Christian McCaffrey. He's just not racking up the same amount of yardage. Now, in this game as well, George Kittle for the San Francisco 49ers needed 1 touchdown receiving to pass Dwight Clark. He was in a tie for 7th with Dwight Clark. He is now tied for 5th with Billy Wilson and Alan Beals. Those 2 guys, Billy Wilson played in the 50s and Alan Beals played in the 40s and up to 1951. They both have 49. So George Kittle now has 49 receiving touchdowns along with them. Next up for him is Vernon Davis with 55. So he needs 6 more. He might get it this season. We'll see. A lot of numbers in this game. NFL record-setting numbers. It was a pretty cool game. Now, also, one more stat for George Kittle before I move on. He actually had let me look. He had 2 touchdown passes 2 touchdowns receiving in this game. Yeah, 2. So also for the San Francisco 49ers, I'll have to correct that. So he's not in a tie with Alan Beals anymore. He actually passed Alan Beals and Billy Wilson to move into that position all by himself. But with 50 now, all touchdowns, total touchdowns for George Kittle with 50, he now moves into the top 10. He takes the 10th spot all by himself for all the touchdowns, all touchdown category for the 49ers. He actually knocked off Alan Beals and Billy Wilson off this list to move into solo 10th place. So he's now, not only is he in the top 10 for receiving touchdowns, he's in the top 10 for all touchdowns scored by a 49er. All right. Now, moving on to our next game. There was a lot of stats in that last game. This game, the Baltimore Ravens against the Cleveland Browns. I mean, this is a game kind of like the Green Bay game where you figured this would be an easy win for their teams. It wasn't. The Cleveland Browns put up quite a fight, but just couldn't ultimately hang on. They ended up losing the game 23-16. And in fact, I mean, they're leading this game most of the way. It took until the fourth quarter for the Baltimore Ravens to pull this game out. This was a game of field goals, a lot of field goals. And the Cleveland touchdown came on an interception by Devin Bush. Otherwise, their offense was inept quite a bit. Derrick Henry, finally, they scored a touchdown in the third quarter. The Ravens make that in the fourth quarter. Actually, Derrick Henry had a touchdown in the second quarter, but then in the fourth quarter is when Mark Andrews had a nice long pass, 35 yards. I mean, he ran for a lot of that to pull into the lead. It was tied 16-16, and finally, with 2.5 minutes to go, Baltimore finally gets the lead on the Cleveland Browns. Not an impressive game for Baltimore. When you're talking about playing against the Cleveland Browns, who had Dylan Gabriel throw for 68 yards before he was out of the game, and then Shadir Sanders comes in, he was horrible, had a quarterback rating of 13.5. He had 4 completions on 16 attempts for 47 yards and an interception. Lamar Jackson played terribly too. This was his worst game. He had been leading the NFL in quarterback rating. Well, not anymore. 14 completions on 25 attempts for 193 yards, 2 interceptions, sacked 5 times. He had a quarterback rating of 47.6. I mean, his quarterback rating at one time was up over 130. That's how good he was playing. Now, I know the Cleveland Browns have a good defense, but and you would have thought Jackson could have done better in this game. I'm not sure what the problem is, because you had Derrick Henry having a great game for him. 18 carries for 103 yards. One of them was 59-yard run, and he had a touchdown as well. And yet, Jackson just didn't have a good game. 4 carries for Jackson for 10 yards even. So 3 of those were behind. He was tackled behind the line of scrimmage. He had a total of 10 yards. His longest run was 13 yards, which means the other 3 were minus 3 yards. But this was a big game for Derrick Henry. Not only did he have 103 yards rushing, he also had 19 receiving, so he had 122 yards total. Now, Judkins, he's a really good running back for Cleveland, but when he's all they have, 17 carries, 59 yards, they're stacking the line on him. There's just no point in worrying about the quarterbacks when they can't throw worth beans. Cleveland will definitely be looking for a quarterback. Now, in this game, Andrews needed 2 catches, and Zay Flowers needed 3 catches. They both got what they needed. In this game, Mark Andrews had 3 catches, and Zay Flowers had 3 catches. So, with 3 catches, Mark Andrews moves into second all-time in receptions for the Baltimore Ravens with 468. He only needs 3 more to catch Derek Mason for first place. Good for him. Now, Zay Flowers has moved into the top 10. He had 3 catches. He's in 9th. He needed 3 catches to move into a tie for 8th. He got those 3 catches, so now he has 204 catches, 204 receptions to tie Travis Taylor for 8th place. Now, next up for him is Torrey Smith, who had 213. So he needs 9 receptions to catch Torrey Smith. So you got 2 players now on the team in the top 10 for the Ravens. Now, when it comes to the same players, but now we're talking yards, Mark Andrews only needed 3 yards to tie Derek Mason for all-time receiving yards for the Baltimore Ravens. Well, he got 32 yards. And Zay Flowers needed 54 yards to catch Michael Jackson to move into 10th to get into the top 10. Well, he had 78 yards. So they both made their goals. So Mark Andrews now, let's move on to Zay Flowers first. Zay Flowers is in the top 10 now with 2,620 yards. Next up for him is Anquan Bolden, who had 2,645. So he needs 25 yards next week to move into 9th place. And congratulations to Mark Andrews for the Ravens. Mark Andrews now has, let me re-say this. Mark Andrews now has 5,806 yards to become the all-time leader for the Baltimore Ravens in receiving yards. All right, let's move on to we'll do one more game, and that's the Chiefs versus the Broncos. Wow, the Chiefs really needed to win this game. They weren't even in the playoffs before the loss, but this is a divisional game. They had to win this game, and they just could not do it. I mean, it was a tight game the whole way, and the Broncos were able to win the game at the very end. I mean, it was a field goal kick at the end of the game to pull this out. It was tied up 19-19, and with no time left on the clock, Will Lutz kicks a 35-yarder. I mean, they kicked 2 field goals, in fact, one to tie Denver, one to tie Kansas City at 19, and then another one to win the game, 22-19. Wow. It was quite a game. So the Denver Broncos continue to win. They're 9-2, and the Kansas City Chiefs are 5-5. Wow, that's a game. I mean, it was a close game all the way. Total yardage, 311 for Kansas City, 342 for Denver. Time of possession, 30.5 for Kansas City, 29.5 for Denver. I mean, this was close. One of the problems both of them had 10 penalties. Not good there. Now, in this game, Patrick Mahomes, neither quarterback had a great game. Patrick Mahomes, 29 for 45 for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was sacked 3 times, had a quarterback rating of 79.5. Bo Nix, 24 for 37, 295 yards, so a little bit better there. No touchdowns, no interceptions, only sacked twice, had a quarterback rating of 89.4. Really not much of a running game for the Chiefs, which you would have thought with a game where they were in the lead, they might have tried to run more. But the only running back was Kareem Hunt, who had 13 carries for 59 yards. Patrick Mahomes had 1 carry for 3 yards. That's it. And it wasn't much different for Broncos. They did have 21 rushes. R.J. Harvey had 11 of those for only 30 yards. Their rushing game was non-existent as well. Travis Kelce had a big game, 9 catches for 91 yards and a touchdown. That was the big player for the Chiefs. I mean, they tried to get the ball to Rashee Rice, 6 catches, but only 38 yards. That was on 9 targets. Now, for Denver, wow, I mean, they just passed it all around. You think Cortland Sutton would be the guy, but he had 4 catches for 59. He was targeted, tied for the most with 8, but only at 4 catches. And you got Pat Bryant. Who would have thought, who would have even known that? 5 catches for 82 yards. And then Troy Franklin, 4 catches for 84. So just a kind of an all-around game as far as for Bo Nix. Not a bad game for him against the Kansas City, who has a good defense. Now, in this game, the only stat we want to look at is Travis Kelce, who did have that touchdown. He was in a tie with Priest Holmes for the Kansas City Chiefs in all-time total touchdowns. They both had 83. Travis Kelce gets 1 touchdown in this game. So Travis Kelce is now the all-time leader in total touchdowns for the Kansas City Chiefs with 84. All right, that is a wrap. We'll get the rest of these games tomorrow. We've got just a few more, actually only 2 more. We'll get those tomorrow, along with taking a look at the standings and then top 10 teams after week 10. So we'll do all that on Wednesday. Appreciate you listening. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. You can find it on YouTube at Just the Stats NFL, whether you're listening just to audio or video. If you are watching the videos at Just the Stats NFL on YouTube, you can see the charts that I'll put up on all these stats that I've listed, all these top 10 categories. You'll see all those stats on that. You can also just listen to the audio on Spotify, Apple, whatever podcast app you listen to. And again, I appreciate you listening. So that is a wrap for this episode of NFL Top 10s for Tuesday. I'm out.